The camera focuses on a modest, two-story house at the end of a cul-de-sac in a quiet suburban neighborhood. A white fence, a few bicycles leaning against it, and a garden that's been kept with love and care. It looks like any other neighborhood, just ordinary enough to blend in with the rest. But there's a quiet tension in the air, something simmering just beneath the surface. Laura, a woman in her early 30s with an aura of quiet determination, is sitting at the kitchen table, staring at her phone. She's scrolling through a string of text messages. Her expression is unreadable. She looks down at a photo of her and her husband, Mark, from a family trip years ago. The photo is slightly faded now, the edges curling. Laura's fingers lightly trace the image, her lips tight. Laura's always been the kind of person who doesn't ask for much. If you ask her, she'll tell you she's happy with what she has. The house, the job, the family. And maybe she is, or maybe she's just too afraid to admit that she's been pretending to be fine for longer than she wants to think about. But this wasn't supposed to happen. She wasn't supposed to be sitting here, torn between everything she's worked so hard to build and something she's been avoiding for far too long. The camera pans over to a coffee cup with a cracked rim. Beside it, a calendar on the wall marks the date. The page is full of scribbled appointments and reminders, but something seems off about it. There's a single circle around a day in the coming week. A day that Laura has been silently dreading. Things hadn't always been this way. Not with Mark. But it's funny how quickly life can shift. How fast things can go from perfect to uncertain. One minute, you're laughing over dinner, talking about what you'll do when the kids are older. The next, well, you're here, alone in the kitchen, wondering if your whole world is about to implode. And maybe you're not even sure which side of that world you're really on anymore. The phone buzzes, snapping Laura out of her thoughts. She glances at the screen, her expression tightening. It's a message from Mark. He's been distant lately, and this message is no different. Short and impersonal. Just a couple of lines about work. A reminder about dinner plans tonight. But what catches Laura's eye is the time of the message. Late at night, far past the hour he usually checks in. She stares at it for a moment, debating whether or not to respond. She knows she should, but there's a nagging feeling in her chest that makes her hesitate. Her thoughts wander back to the last few weeks. The tension between her and Mark has been growing, and she can't shake the feeling that something isn't right. There were the late nights, the unexplained absences, the moments where his attention seemed to drift off, and the look in his eyes when he'd come home from work. Distant, guarded, as if he were a stranger. She tried to tell herself that it was just stress, just the weight of everything piling up. But deep down, she knew the truth. Things had changed, and she wasn't sure if she was ready to face it yet. She places her phone face down on the table and stands up, walking to the window. Outside, the sun is just starting to dip below the horizon, casting a warm glow across the yard. The house feels quieter now, emptier. She can hear the distant sound of children playing, their laughter carrying on the breeze. It's the sound of life moving on, of everything continuing as usual, even though it feels like hers is slowly falling apart. The phone buzzes again, pulling Laura back from her thoughts. This time it's a call. Mark's name flashes across the screen. She picks it up quickly, but there's hesitation in her voice when she answers. "Hey," she says, trying to sound casual, though her heart is beating faster now. "Hey, Laura," Mark replies, his voice distant, almost strained. "Listen, I'm going to be late tonight. Got caught up with some stuff at the office." "Again," Laura says, the frustration slipping into her voice before she can stop it. She quickly adds, "I mean, it's fine. We're just having dinner. The kids are excited to see you." Mark doesn't respond right away. There's a long pause before he speaks again. "I know, I'm sorry. I'll be home as soon as I can, all right?" "All right," Laura replies, though she doesn't feel all right. There's something in his voice, something she can't quite place, that makes her stomach twist. They say goodbye, and Laura hangs up, setting the phone down slowly on the counter. She takes a deep breath, her mind racing. Mark's late nights are becoming more frequent, and it's hard to ignore the mounting suspicion that something's off. He's never been the type to stay late at work. In fact, when they first got together, he was always the one to rush home, eager to spend time with his family. But now, it feels like he's slipping further away from her, like he's losing interest. She tells herself that maybe she's just overthinking it. Maybe he's just tired. Work can be demanding, and the kids have been especially needy lately. But deep down, she knows she can't ignore the signs anymore. Laura walks over to the living room, sitting down on the couch. Her eyes drift over to the framed picture on the wall. It's a family photo from last summer. Mark, her, and the kids, all smiles, sunburned from a trip they took to the lake. She remembers how easy it was then, how natural everything felt. They didn't have to try to be happy. It just came. But now, that happiness feels like a distant memory, something they've both forgotten how to reach for. Her phone buzzes again. It's another message from Mark, this time a simple, "I love you." Laura stares at the words for a moment, the familiarity of them almost comforting. Almost. But then she notices something that catches her off guard. There's a typo in the message. He didn't type, "I love you." He typed, "I love you." She sits there for a moment, staring at the message, her mind racing. It's such a small thing, a simple mistake, but something about it makes the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. Feels off. As if he's not really paying attention, as if he's distracted, not just physically but mentally. Laura's thoughts are interrupted by a sudden sound. One of the kids, Emily, calling her from upstairs. Laura sighs and stands up, trying to shake off the unease that's settled in her chest. She's been avoiding this conversation, pretending that everything's fine when it clearly isn't. But she can't keep ignoring it. Something's happening, something she's not ready to face. But she knows she can't keep pretending it's not there. She takes another deep breath, heading upstairs to check on Emily. As she reaches the top of the stairs, she pauses for a moment, staring down the hallway at Mark's study door. It's shut tight, the faint glow of a desk lamp visible underneath it. She hasn't been in there in weeks, maybe longer, but tonight, she feels the pull, the urge to open it, to look around. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's everything. Laura paused at the top of the stairs for a moment, staring at the closed door to Mark's study. It wasn't like her to pry, not really. But there was a shift in the air tonight, something she couldn't shake. Something felt off about Mark. Something in the way he was acting. Distant, distracted, maybe even a little careless. As much as she told herself to stay calm, her instincts were screaming at her to open the door, to take a look. Just one look. The lamp under the door cast a soft, orange glow that made the hallway feel even quieter than usual. Her mind raced. What if she found something? Or worse, what if she didn't? What if it was nothing at all and she was just overreacting? She was too tired to be having these kinds of thoughts. The kids had been a handful all day, and she knew that Mark would be home soon, or at least he said he would. But somehow, everything felt heavier tonight. "Mom!" Emily called again, her voice pulling Laura from her thoughts. Laura sighed, giving one last glance toward the study door. She could deal with this later, right? Maybe she just needed to focus on the kids for now. So, she turned away and headed to Emily's room, where she found her sitting on the bed, surrounded by stuffed animals, a book lying untouched in her lap. "I'm scared," Emily said quietly, not looking up from the book. Laura sat down beside her, brushing a strand of hair from Emily's forehead. "What are you scared of, sweetheart?" "I don't know. Everything feels weird," Emily murmured, her small voice filled with the kind of worry only a child could express. "You and Daddy don't talk the way you used to." Laura's chest tightened. She wasn't ready to talk to Emily about this. Not yet. She wasn't even sure what to say herself. "It's just grown-up stuff," she said softly, smoothing the blanket around Emily. "Sometimes grown-ups have things to figure out, but we'll be okay." Emily nodded, but the concern in her eyes didn't disappear. Laura kissed her forehead and stood up to leave the room, but she lingered at the door, her thoughts swirling. She couldn't pretend everything was fine forever. Something had to change. A couple of hours later, the house was quieter, save for the low hum of the fridge and the occasional creak of the house settling. Mark still wasn't home, and that familiar gnawing feeling of uncertainty in Laura's stomach had only gotten worse. She tried to shake it off by getting the kids ready for bed, tucking them in one by one with stories and kisses. But no matter how much she told herself she needed to stay calm, she couldn't ignore the fact that Mark hadn't called. She grabbed her phone and dialed his number. It rang for a few moments before his voicemail picked up. She tried again. No answer. The knot in her stomach tightened. A few minutes later, her phone buzzed again. It was a text from Mark. Something came up. "I'll be home soon. Love you." Laura's eyes narrowed as she read the words. It was the same vague excuse he had used for the past few weeks. Love you. Always love you at the end of those messages. But it didn't feel the same anymore. It wasn't enough to fix whatever was breaking. Whatever had been broken for a long time. The next morning, Laura woke up early. The house was still quiet, the kids still asleep. She felt that sense of urgency again, that itch to figure things out before it all slipped through her fingers. Her mind immediately went to the study. She had to know. What was Mark hiding? She grabbed a cup of coffee, steeling herself, and walked toward the study door. She stood there for a moment, listening to the faint sounds from inside. Nothing. No movement. She turned the knob slowly, heart pounding in her chest. When the door creaked open, she was greeted by the dim light of the desk lamp and the scattered papers and books that filled the room. It looked exactly like it always had. Organized chaos. Laura took a step inside, her eyes scanning the room, looking for anything unusual. She could feel the weight of the silence pressing in on her as she moved toward the desk, where an open laptop sat. Her hands hovered over it for a moment, but she hesitated. This wasn't who she was. She wasn't the kind of person who snooped. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized that she hadn't been that person in a long time, and maybe it was time to face the truth. She sat down and opened the laptop. There were a few open tabs, nothing strange. Work emails, a couple of random websites. But then she clicked on the browser history, and that's when she saw it. A name she didn't recognize. Laura's breath caught in her throat. She quickly clicked on the link. It was an online dating profile, with pictures of a woman who looked almost too perfect, smiling, vibrant, with a glimmer in her eyes. It was the kind of smile that Laura hadn't seen in Mark for a long time. Her hands shook as she stared at the screen. The realization hit her like a ton of bricks. It wasn't just stress. It wasn't just work. Mark had been hiding something, someone, and all this time, Laura had been too blinded by her own doubts to see it. She slammed the laptop shut, her heart racing. She felt dizzy, like the ground beneath her had suddenly vanished. This couldn't be happening. Not to them. Not to her family. The tears came then, unbidden and overwhelming. She sank into the chair, her face buried in her hands. How long had this been going on? How long had he been lying to her? The anger, the hurt. It was all too much to process. But there was one thing she knew for sure. She wasn't going to let this destroy her. She wasn't going to be a victim of it. She had to confront him. She had to know the truth, no matter how much it hurt. Hours passed before Mark finally came home. When he walked through the front door, looking disheveled and weary, Laura was already waiting. Her eyes were dry now, but the storm inside her hadn't calmed. "Laura," Mark started, his voice soft, apologetic. "I'm sorry I was late again. Work's been crazy. You know how it is." But Laura didn't want to hear it anymore. She didn't want the excuses. She didn't want the lies. She stood up, her fists clenched at her sides. "I know about her," she said, her voice cold. Mark froze, his face going pale. "What? Don't lie to me, Mark. I saw the profile. I saw the messages." Mark's face fell, guilt flooding his expression. "Laura, please." "No," she interrupted, her voice trembling now, but filled with a strength she hadn't realized she still had. "I want the truth. Now." Mark exhaled slowly, looking down at the floor, unable to meet her eyes. He didn't have to say anything for Laura to know that everything she'd feared was true. Mark's face remains frozen, his mouth slightly open, like he wants to say something but doesn't know where to begin. His eyes dart to the floor, and for a moment, the silence between them is suffocating. Laura stands there, her heart pounding in her chest, her thoughts a jumble of confusion, hurt, and anger. She's never seen him like this before. So broken, so utterly incapable of defending himself. Mark rubs a hand over his face, as if trying to wipe away the guilt that's clearly written all over him. He takes a step forward, but Laura holds up a hand to stop him. She's not ready to hear him beg for forgiveness. Not yet. Who is she, Mark? Laura's voice is barely a whisper, but it cuts through the air like a knife. Mark takes a deep breath, his shoulders slumping as he finally looks up at her, his eyes heavy with regret. Her name's Jennifer, he admits. I never meant for it to happen. I swear. He stops, his voice breaking. I got caught up in it. I don't know what I was thinking. Laura shakes her head, her hands clenched into fists by her sides. She's barely holding it together. Caught up in what, Mark? In lying to me? In betraying everything we've built? Mark's eyes flicker with shame, but there's something else too, fear. He knows this is the moment where it all falls apart. He knows he can't undo the damage. I never wanted to hurt you, he says, his voice desperate. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I just felt so alone. We've been drifting for so long, and I didn't know how to fix it. I thought. He trails off, his eyes searching hers, looking for some sign of understanding, but there's nothing but pain reflected back at him. Laura takes a shaky breath, holding back the tears that threaten to spill over. So you thought it was okay to find comfort in someone else? Is that it? Mark opens his mouth to respond, but the words don't come. He's been caught, and as much as he wants to make it right, he knows there's no easy way out of this. I gave everything for you, for this family, Laura says, her voice stronger now, though the hurt still lingers. And this is how you repay me? With lies. Mark steps closer, his hand reaching for her, but Laura pulls away, stepping back until she's pressed against the wall. No, she says, her voice firm, though it trembles with emotion. I can't do this anymore, Mark. I can't pretend that everything's fine when it's not. The tears finally spill down her cheeks, and Mark reaches out again, but she stops him with a sharp shake of her head. I don't know who you are anymore. Mark looks crushed, like every word Laura says is a wound. He takes another step back, his face pale, his eyes hollow with regret. I'm sorry. I never meant for it to happen this way. The words hang in the air, heavy with their implications. Laura feels as though the ground beneath her is crumbling, and she's left standing in the wreckage of their life together. She's always been the one to hold things together, to fix what's broken. But now it's clear. There's no fixing this. For the first time, she allows herself to speak the truth aloud, something she's been too afraid to acknowledge until now. I don't think I can forgive you, Mark. It's a brutal admission, and it stings like a slap. But it's what she needs to say. She needs to reclaim her own power, to take back control of her life before it slips further out of her grasp. Mark takes a few steps back, his shoulders sagging. He opens his mouth, as though he's going to say something else, but the words die on his lips. He's lost her. She's already made up her mind. The silence that follows is deafening. Laura finally looks away from him, turning to the side, wiping away the tears that have started to fall in earnest now. She's not crying because she's sad. She's crying because she's angry, because her trust, her love, everything she thought was solid, has been shattered. And there's no going back from this. A few hours later, Laura finds herself standing in the backyard, the cool evening air brushing against her skin as she stares at the fading light. The kids are in bed now, unaware of the storm that's torn through their home tonight. She's trying to breathe, trying to think, but everything feels heavy. Her mind is racing, her thoughts a whirlwind of confusion and frustration. She can't go back to the way things were. Not now. Not after everything Mark has done. But the truth is, she doesn't know what the next step is. Where do you go when everything you thought was secure crumbles in an instant? As she stands there, lost in her thoughts, her phone buzzes in her pocket. It's a message from her best friend, Rachel. Are you okay? The text reads. Laura stares at the screen, unsure of how to respond. She can't lie to Rachel, not this time. She takes a deep breath and types back, I don't know. Rachel's reply comes a few minutes later. If you need to talk, I'm here. Laura sets the phone down beside her, her hands shaking. She feels the weight of it all. The betrayal, the hurt, the overwhelming sense that everything is falling apart. But for the first time in a long while, she knows something else, too. She's stronger than she's given herself credit for. The next morning, Laura wakes up early, her mind already working overtime. She can't stay in this house any longer, not with everything that's happened. She needs space. She needs to think. But she also knows that confronting Mark, facing the truth, is the only way forward. There's no room for pretending anymore. It's time to decide what she's going to do with the rest of her life. She makes a plan. She'll take the kids and go stay with Rachel for a while. She'll give herself time to breathe, to figure out what comes next. But Mark won't get off easy. She's going to make him face the consequences of his actions. This isn't just about betrayal. It's about trust, respect, and the life they've built together. And if he wants any chance of salvaging that, he's going to have to earn it. It's been 2 days since Laura made the decision. 2 long days of walking around in a fog, the weight of everything bearing down on her every step. The house feels colder, quieter than it's ever been. She's taken the kids to Rachel's, a small comfort in the midst of the chaos. But every time she closes her eyes, she sees Mark's face. His hollow eyes, his broken voice pleading for another chance. But there's no going back. Not now. Not after everything. Today, Laura stands at the front door, her hand resting on the knob, contemplating the next step. She's spent hours pacing, organizing her thoughts, trying to find some way to make sense of it all. It's only now, standing here, that the truth begins to settle in. This isn't just about Mark. It's about her, too. About what she's willing to tolerate and what she's willing to sacrifice for her peace of mind. She opens the door and steps outside, the weight of the moment pressing down on her chest. Mark is already waiting by his car, his hands stuffed into the pockets of his jacket, his expression unreadable. The tension between them is palpable, like a thick fog that neither can shake. Laura feels the anger well up in her chest, and she takes a deep breath, forcing herself to stay calm. This isn't just about yelling or blaming. This is about confronting the truth and standing up for herself. Mark, she says, her voice steady, though there's a raw edge to it. We need to talk. Mark looks up, his eyes flickering with hesitation. He wants to say something, but he holds back, his lips tight. The silence between them stretches, thick with unspoken words. I've been thinking, Laura continues, her gaze unwavering. I can't keep pretending that everything's fine, that what happened, it doesn't matter. It matters. You hurt me, Mark. You broke my trust. Mark takes a step forward, but Laura holds up a hand, stopping him. She's not ready for his apologies. Not yet. I need to know why. Why her? Why now? She asks, her voice trembling with the weight of the question. Was I not enough for you? Mark looks away, his jaw tightening. It wasn't like that, he begins. But his words seem hollow, like he's trying to convince himself more than anyone else. I didn't mean for it to happen. I don't want excuses. Laura interrupts, her tone hardening. I want the truth. Mark looks at her then, really looks at her, and something shifts in his eyes. The guilt is still there, but there's something else now, a flicker of clarity, maybe even regret. I don't know, Laura. I got lost. I don't know how we got here, but I've been trying to figure it out, too. Laura shakes her head, the anger rising again. Trying to figure it out? While I'm here, holding everything together. While I've been here taking care of everything, our home, the kids, while you were what? Out looking for someone else? Someone who doesn't know you, doesn't know us. The words come out faster now, her emotions spilling over. You don't get to just decide that I'm not enough for you. You don't get to destroy everything because you were lost. You should have come to me. You should have talked to me, Mark. But instead, you kept it a secret. And now everything's broken. Mark's face twists with guilt. But it's too little, too late. Laura's voice softens, though the hurt is still there, raw and exposed. You're right about one thing, she says quietly. You are lost. But you don't get to drag me down with you. There's a long pause, and in that moment Laura feels something inside her shift. Something that's been building for days, weeks even. It's a realization that she can't keep holding on to something that's already slipping through her fingers. She can't keep pretending. I don't know what's going to happen, Mark, she says, her voice a little steadier now. But I can't stay here. Not with this hanging over us. I need space. I need time to figure out what I want. I'm not going to live like this anymore. Mark opens his mouth, but no words come out. He stands there, frozen, his face a picture of regret. For a moment, Laura feels sorry for him. But then the feeling fades. She's past that. She's already moving forward, whether he's ready or not. I'm leaving, she says firmly. I'll take the kids to my sister's for a while. I need you to respect that. Mark stands still, the weight of her words hitting him hard. He looks like he wants to say something, anything, but the words don't come. Instead, he watches her as she walks past him, her back straight, her steps steady, though her heart is anything but calm. Later that night, as Laura tucks the kids into bed at Rachel's house, she can't shake the feeling of relief mixed with something darker, something that still feels heavy. The last few days have been a whirlwind, and she's exhausted, both mentally and physically. But even as she sits beside Emily, brushing her hair, she knows this is the right choice. Her phone buzzes on the nightstand, and she picks it up, her heart sinking as she sees the message from Mark. I'm sorry. I don't know what to do anymore. The message is simple, but the weight of it hits her like a wave. She feels the tears begin to well up in her eyes, but she doesn't let them fall. She's been here before, and she knows that crying isn't going to fix anything. She types a reply, the words coming easily now, almost like they've been building for days. I can't fix this, Mark. I don't know if we can, but I have to try. For me. For us. She sends the message, and as she does, she realizes that she's not just talking about their relationship anymore. She's talking about herself. She needs to fix herself first. She needs to find her own way forward. Laura looks down at Emily, who's drifting off to sleep, her face peaceful and innocent. Laura brushes a stray hair from her daughter's face, her heart swelling with love for the little girl who's still so full of hope, so full of life. Laura has to protect that. She has to protect herself, too. As she turns off the light and heads downstairs, she takes a deep breath, feeling the weight of everything pressing against her chest. She doesn't know what the future holds, or how everything is going to play out, but she's done pretending. She's done being the woman who's afraid to stand up for herself, afraid to confront the truth, afraid to take control of her own life. The first step is done. Now she just has to take the next one. The days have turned into a blur for Laura. Since leaving the house with the kids, time feels both suspended and hurried, like the world is moving around her while she's standing still, trying to hold on to whatever pieces of herself haven't cracked yet. Rachel has been nothing but supportive, offering her own home as a refuge. But Laura knows this can't last forever. Her emotions are raw, and every time she sees her kids smiling, she wonders if they'll ever be able to return to the life they once had. They've been through enough upheaval in the last few days. She doesn't want to make them feel like they're being torn between two worlds, especially when she's not even sure where her own heart is right now. At the same time, something in Laura has shifted. Something inside her, that quiet part she had buried beneath the years of trying to be the perfect wife, perfect mother, is waking up. It's scary and it's uncomfortable, but it feels necessary. She needs to know who she is again, without Mark, without the role she's been playing for so long. Tonight, she sits at the kitchen table at Rachel's house, staring at her phone. The screen is filled with messages from Mark, each one more desperate than the last. He's calling, texting, pleading for a chance to explain, to fix things. But Laura knows there's nothing to fix, not right now. What he did, what they both allowed to happen, isn't something that can be patched up with words. And then, She sees it. A message from Mark that makes her heart stop. "I'm coming over tonight. We need to talk." She hesitates, staring at the words, the heaviness of them sinking in. He's not going to let this go. He's not going to leave her alone until he gets the closure he wants. But Laura's not sure she's ready for that conversation. Not yet, at least. The thought of him showing up here, at Rachel's, adds another layer of tension she doesn't need. Rachel enters the room, sensing the change in Laura's demeanor as soon as she walks in. "What's wrong?" Laura holds up the phone, her voice tight. "Mark says he's coming over tonight. He wants to talk." Rachel frowns, but she doesn't say anything at first. She knows how complicated everything has become for Laura. She knows the pain, the confusion. "Do you think you're ready for that?" Laura exhales slowly, running a hand through her hair. "I don't know. I keep thinking that if I just keep avoiding him, things will get easier. But I can't keep running, can I?" Rachel sits down across from her, her expression understanding. "You don't have to do this alone. I'm here, Laura. I'll be right here with you." Laura gives a small, grateful smile. But she knows that no one can do this for her. This is her fight now, her decision. A few hours later, Laura is standing at the window, staring out at the fading daylight, trying to calm her nerves. The kids are upstairs, safely tucked away in their rooms, oblivious to the storm brewing downstairs. Her heart is hammering in her chest, her mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. What is Mark going to say? How is she supposed to respond? The idea of facing him again makes her feel like a stranger in her own skin. When the knock comes at the door, Laura nearly jumps out of her skin. She takes a deep breath, steadying herself before walking across the room. She opens the door slowly, and there he is. Mark, standing in the doorway, looking worn and defeated. He's been crying. Laura can see it in the red of his eyes and the slump of his shoulders. For a moment, neither of them speaks. It's like they're both waiting for the other to say something first, but neither of them knows where to begin. Finally, Mark clears his throat. "Laura, I don't know what to say anymore. I can't keep pretending like everything's okay. I've messed up. I know that. I don't know how to fix it, but I'm asking you, please let me try." Laura looks at him, her heart torn in two. A part of her wants to reach out, to forgive him, to just make everything go back to normal. But another part of her, the part that's finally waking up after years of denial, knows that forgiveness isn't something that can be rushed. It's not something that can be earned just by showing up. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Mark," she says quietly, her voice stronger than she feels. "I don't know if I want to forgive you." Mark's face falls, but Laura doesn't let the guilt affect her. "Not this time. You broke something inside me," she continues, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't know how to fix it. I don't know if I even want to. I've spent so many years trying to hold this all together, trying to make us work. And you just destroyed it. You destroyed us." Mark's eyes glisten with tears, but Laura doesn't back down. "I was trying so hard, Mark. I was trying to keep this family together, to keep everything running. But you were out there living a different life. A life that didn't include me. A life where I wasn't enough." Mark steps forward, his hand reaching for her, but Laura steps back, shaking her head. "I can't do this anymore," she says, the words cutting through the air like a knife. "I need to find who I am without you, without us." For the first time in years, Laura feels a strange sense of peace. She's not running away from him anymore. She's not running from her own emotions. She's confronting them head-on. Mark stands there, stunned, his body stiff, as if the world has been ripped out from under him. The silence between them is thick with the weight of everything they've been through, and everything that's been lost. "Please," he whispers, his voice cracking. "Laura, don't leave me. I can fix this. I will do whatever it takes to fix this." But Laura looks at him, her heart aching, and shakes her head. "I'm not sure I want it fixed, Mark. Not like this." The words hang in the air, a painful truth that neither of them wants to accept. But it's out there now, unspoken, and it can't be taken back. The next day, Laura spends the morning packing up her things, taking what she needs, leaving behind what she doesn't. It feels final, like she's putting the past to rest, but also like she's walking into an uncertain future. The kids are still at Rachel's, safe and oblivious, and Laura is grateful for the time she's had away. Mark hasn't come by, hasn't tried to reach her again. It's almost like he's finally starting to understand that this time, there's no way back. Laura knows it won't be easy, but for the first time in a long time, she feels like she's in control of her own life. She's facing the future with no promises, no guarantees, just a deep resolve to take care of herself and her children. As she finishes packing, Laura catches her reflection in the mirror. She doesn't recognize the woman staring back at her. She's not the same person she was a week ago. She's stronger, more certain of what she wants, and ready to make the choices that will lead her to a better future. When she walks out the door, she doesn't look back. She's ready to face whatever comes next. The days that follow Laura's confrontation with Mark are the hardest she's ever faced. The weight of everything she's just set in motion hangs over her like a storm cloud that won't dissipate. She's trying to hold it all together, trying to keep a brave face for the kids and Rachel, but inside, everything feels broken. The life she thought she had, the marriage that was supposed to be forever, feels like it's slipping through her fingers. Laura's doing her best to keep it together. She's living day to day, focusing on the kids, going through the motions. But every night, after they've gone to bed, she finds herself staring at the ceiling, her thoughts spinning. Every decision she's made, every conversation, everything has led her to this point. And yet, she can't help but wonder if she's made the right choice. But deep down, there's something stronger than the doubts creeping in. There's a sense of clarity, a quiet voice telling her that she's finally doing what she should have done a long time ago. She's choosing herself. She's choosing her future. But the tension is still thick. Mark has respected her space, for the most part, but there's a growing fear in Laura that this isn't over, that the final confrontation is still waiting to happen, and she's not sure she's ready for it. It's a Wednesday afternoon when the phone rings. Laura picks it up, already knowing who it is. Mark. She doesn't answer, letting it ring out. But then the voicemail alert flashes on her screen. Her heart races. Laura listens to the message, her stomach twisting as Mark's voice fills her ears. I can't keep doing this, Laura. I need to see you. I need to talk to you. Please. I've made so many mistakes, and I need you to know I'm sorry. I want to fix this. I can't do it without you. Please don't shut me out. I'm coming to see you. Tonight. The finality of the words hits Laura hard. She knows in that moment that this isn't just about healing anymore. It's about closure, about facing the brokenness of their relationship and deciding whether there's anything left to salvage. The kids are at Rachel's, spending the afternoon playing with her daughter, and Laura has the house to herself. She sits down at the kitchen table, the weight of Mark's message heavy in her hands. She doesn't know if she's ready for this conversation, but she knows it's inevitable. It's around 7 p.m. when the doorbell rings. Her heart skips a beat. She takes a deep breath and walks to the door, but she hesitates just before she opens it. She's not sure if she's ready to see him again, to hear the apology he's been rehearsing for days. But she opens the door anyway. Mark stands there, looking even more defeated than the last time she saw him. His shoulders are slumped, his eyes red. He looks like a man who's been through hell, and it's hard not to feel a little sorry for him. But Laura quickly shuts that down. She's not here to feel sorry for him. Laura, he starts, but the words get stuck in his throat. He's lost for a moment, trying to find the right thing to say. Come in, she says, her voice steady, though it feels foreign to her own ears. She steps aside, letting him in, and closes the door behind him. They stand in the living room, both unsure of what comes next. There's a strange stillness between them now, as though the room itself is holding its breath, waiting for the first move. Look, I know I've messed up. I know I've hurt you in ways I can't even begin to explain. But I'm not asking for your forgiveness right now, Mark says, his voice trembling. I just need you to know that I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry for everything. Laura crosses her arms over her chest, studying him carefully. Sorry isn't enough anymore, Mark, she says, her voice flat but firm. You can't just keep saying sorry and expect everything to go back to normal. You broke something. Something that can't be fixed with words. Mark swallows hard, and for a moment he looks like he's going to crumble. But he stays standing. I know I can't fix it, but I need you to know that I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I was so lost. And when I saw Jennifer, when I started talking to her, I thought maybe I could feel something again. Maybe I could find a way back to myself. And you thought doing that would fix us? Laura says, her voice rising now, the anger she's been holding in surfacing. You don't fix something by tearing it apart, Mark. You fix it by being honest. By talking. But you didn't. You went behind my back. And that's not something I can just forgive. Mark's face tightens, and his fists clench at his sides. I wasn't thinking clearly, he admits. I wasn't thinking at all. But I need you to know that I love you, Laura. I always have. And I want to fix this. I want to fix us. The words hit Laura like a slap, but she's not ready to let her guard down. Not yet. She can see the sincerity in his eyes, but that doesn't change what he did. She's not the same woman she was before, and she knows that if she lets him back in now, if she lets him convince her, she'll just keep repeating the same cycle of brokenness they've been in for years. You say you love me, but love isn't just about words. It's about actions. And your actions? They've shown me that I've been putting all my trust in the wrong place, she says, her voice growing more certain with every word. You've hurt me, Mark. You've hurt me in ways I never thought possible. And I don't know if I can go back from that. Mark takes a step toward her, his expression desperate. Please, Laura. I'm asking for another chance. I can't live with the thought that I've ruined everything with you. That I've lost you for good. Laura stands her ground, but something inside her begins to crack. She sees the pain in his eyes, and for a moment, she feels herself waver. But then the thought hits her. She can't fix him. She can't fix this. Not unless she fixes herself first. I'm not the same person I was when I married you, Mark. And you're not the same person either. We've changed. And I don't know if we're the same people who can make this work anymore. Maybe we were never meant to. The silence in the room is deafening now, the weight of her words hanging in the air. She's not sure if he's going to say anything else, but she knows what she needs to do. It's time to move forward. It's time to let go of the past, no matter how much it hurts. Mark doesn't speak. Instead, he just looks at her, the realization that this is truly oversettling in. He knows he's lost her. Laura walks past him, her back straight, the weight of her decision heavy in the pit of her stomach. But for the first time in a long time, she feels a sense of freedom. She's standing on the edge of something new, a new beginning. As she walks to the door, she turns to look at Mark one last time. Goodbye, Mark. I hope you find what you're looking for. But I can't be part of this anymore. The door closes behind her, and the finality of it all settles in. The next morning, Laura wakes up to a strange quietness. It's not that the house is empty. The kids are still at Rachel's, running around and playing like they always do. But there's a new kind of silence in the air. It's the kind of silence that comes after a storm has passed, the kind that makes everything feel both too still and too loud at the same time. She's still processing everything that happened last night. The conversation with Mark has played over and over in her mind. Each word, each movement. The look in his eyes when she finally told him that it was over. He had no words left. Nothing to say that could change what had already been broken. But even as she tells herself it was the right decision, there's a knot in her chest, something that won't quite loosen. She still loves him. She knows she does deep down. But love isn't enough anymore. Not when trust has been shattered. Not when she spent years suppressing her own needs, her own desires, just to hold on to something that was already slipping away. And that's the part that hurts the most. Laura stands by the window, staring out at the garden. She feels a strange sense of detachment, like she's watching someone else's life unfold, as if she's not the one living it. She can't help but think about the family she and Mark once dreamed of, the future they'd imagined for themselves. It all feels so far away now. Just then, her phone rings. It's Rachel. Laura answers it quickly, needing to hear her friend's voice. Hey! Rachel says, her voice light, but there's an edge to it. How are you doing? I don't know, Laura replies, her voice soft. I'm fine. I guess. It's just a lot to process. I get that, Rachel says sympathetically. But I'm glad you're taking this step. You deserve to be happy, Laura. And you deserve peace. I don't know if I'll ever be happy again, Laura says, her voice tinged with sadness. I don't know if I'll ever be able to look at my life the same way again. But I have to do this. For me. For the kids. Don't let him make you feel guilty for what you need, Rachel warns. You've been through enough. You don't owe him anything. Laura sighs, pressing her palm against her forehead. I just don't know what comes next, Rachel. I feel like I've lost everything. You haven't lost anything, Rachel reassures her. You've just found yourself. And that's the first step toward healing. The tension between Laura and Mark has reached its peak. The few weeks following their final confrontation have been tense and uncertain. Mark hasn't tried to contact her again. First, it's a relief. The silence between them feels like the space she needs to think, to breathe. But as the days pass, the uncertainty begins to creep in. Has she made the right choice? Has she turned away from something that could still be saved? But every time the question arises, she remembers the look in Mark's eyes the night they parted. The emptiness, the resignation. That's when she knows deep down that this is the right decision. He's not the man he used to be, and neither is she. And maybe, just maybe, it's time to stop pretending. She's been spending more time with the kids, taking them to the park, helping them with their school projects, just being there for them in ways she never had before. It's the closest thing to normal that she can manage right now. But even as she spends more time focused on them, a part of her still feels lost. It's late one night when Laura gets the unexpected phone call. She's just finished tucking the kids in and is sitting down on the couch with a cup of tea, ready to unwind. Her phone buzzes on the coffee table, and when she looks down, her heart skips a beat. It's from Mark. I need to see you. Please. I don't know how else to fix this. She stares at the message for a long moment, her pulse quickening. This is it. This is the moment that's been hanging over her. The moment that will either confirm her decision or unravel everything she's worked so hard to build. Laura can feel her heart pounding in her chest as she types a response. She can't ignore this. She has to face it head on. She types, then deletes, then types again. I'm not sure I can do this anymore, Mark. You need to move on. So do I. She hesitates for a moment longer, but then presses send. She can't let herself waver. She can't let him drag her back into something that's already over. The phone buzzes again almost immediately. It's a call. Laura hesitates, looking at the screen, her finger hovering over the answer button. It takes her a few seconds to finally swipe the screen and accept the call. Laura, Mark says, his voice strained. Please, just let me explain. Let me show you that I can fix this. I don't want to lose you. Laura closes her eyes, leaning back against the couch. She can hear the desperation in his voice, and it almost makes her want to give in. But then she remembers the hurt, the betrayal. She can't keep living in the past. You had your chance, Mark, she says softly, her voice steady. You had your chance to show me that you were worth trusting. But you didn't. And I can't do this anymore. There's a long silence on the other end of the line, and Laura can hear Mark's breathing, heavy and uneven. She can almost feel the weight of the words she's just spoken, but she knows they're the right ones. I'm sorry, Mark says quietly, his voice cracking. I never meant to hurt you. I thought I could fix it before it was too late. Laura doesn't respond right away. She just listens to his words, the sadness and regret in his tone. And for the first time, she realizes that she's not just letting go of him. She's letting go of the person she used to be. The person who was afraid of change, of facing the truth. The person who stayed in a relationship that wasn't healthy, out of fear of what might happen if she didn't. You didn't, she says finally, her voice almost a whisper. But maybe that's okay. I can't live in this anymore, Mark. I can't keep pretending. Another silence. Feels final. And yet, in that silence, there's something else. something Laura can't name, but it's there. A sense of peace, of closure. "I need to go," Laura says, ending the call before Mark can say anything else. She sits in the stillness for a moment, letting the weight of the decision settle over her. There's no going back. And maybe that's the hardest part, but it's also the most liberating. As the days pass, Laura finds herself adjusting. She starts to breathe again, starts to rediscover the woman she was before all of this. She spends more time with her friends, her family. She puts herself first, learning to balance the needs of her kids with her own needs. For the first time in a long time, Laura feels like she's moving forward, even if it's a slow and uncertain process. She doesn't know what the future holds, but she knows she's strong enough to handle whatever comes her way. She's learned that her happiness doesn't depend on anyone else, not even on the man she once thought she couldn't live without. The road ahead is still long, and the wounds from her past haven't fully healed. But Laura knows this. She's finally taking control of her own life, and that, in itself, is the greatest victory. The weeks following Laura's phone call with Mark feel like a blur. There's a strange sense of peace that has settled over her life, but it's fragile, like a house of cards that could collapse with the wrong move. She's begun to take back control, piece by piece, but the uncertainty still lingers. Each day is a test of her resolve, a test to see if she can truly leave the past behind and embrace the future she's beginning to carve out for herself. The kids are doing well. Emily and Noah have adjusted, though there's a subtle shift in the air whenever they mention their dad. They don't fully understand the complexity of what's happening, but they feel the tension. Laura does her best to reassure them, to show them that everything will be okay. But there are moments when she catches herself in the mirror, staring at her own reflection, and wonders if she's really okay. And then, one night, when everything is quiet and still, she gets the phone call. It's from Mark. Her heart sinks at the sight of his name on the screen. For the past few weeks, she's managed to avoid him. Avoided the pressure of the past and the guilt he tries to impose on her. But now, here it is. The final confrontation she knew was coming. The last moment that could make or break everything. She hesitates for a moment before answering. "Mark." His voice is strained, raw, as though he's been holding something back for days. "Laura, I've been thinking. I can't keep doing this. I can't keep living like this. I'm not asking for you to come back, but I need to know. Do you think I can change? Do you think I can make this right?" Laura's breath catches in her throat. It's the question she's been dreading, because it doesn't just ask about their relationship. It asks about her future. Can she forgive him? Can she live with what he's done? Can she move forward with him? Or is this the moment where everything ends for good? There's a long silence between them. Laura's fingers grip the edge of the table, and she closes her eyes, searching for the right words. This is the moment that will determine everything. If she says yes, if she tells him that she believes in the possibility of redemption, she's opening the door to a future she's not sure she wants anymore. But if she says no, it will close the door completely, and she has no idea if she's ready for that either. "I don't know, Mark," she says finally, her voice quiet but firm. "I don't know if I can believe in you anymore. I don't know if I can forgive what you did." The words hang in the air between them, and Laura can almost feel the weight of them pressing down on her chest. She knows what this means. She knows that saying this out loud is the final act of letting go. But there's something else she knows too. This is not just about Mark. It's about her. It's about what she deserves. She deserves to feel whole again. She deserves to feel safe, to feel loved in a way that doesn't tear her apart. "I can't be the person you want me to be, Mark," she continues, her voice stronger now, the weight of the decision lifting with every word. "And I can't keep waiting for you to change. I have to move forward for myself. For my kids." Mark's silence on the other end of the line is deafening. For a moment, Laura wonders if he's even listening, or if he's already given up. She hears him take a sharp breath. "I understand," he says, his voice a whisper. I didn't want to lose you. I didn't want to lose everything." And that's when Laura realizes. She's not just letting go of Mark. She's letting go of everything she thought she knew about herself. She's not the person she was a year ago. She's not the woman who would stay silent, who would keep holding on to a relationship that was already broken. She's the woman who's learned that her happiness isn't tied to anyone else's decisions. It's tied to her own. "I think it's time, Mark," she says softly, her voice steady. "It's time for us to move on. For good." There's another long pause before he speaks again, this time quieter, almost resigned. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Laura. I hope you're happy." With those final words, the call ends. Laura sets the phone down slowly, feeling the heaviness of the moment sink in. She sits there for a long time, staring at the screen, letting the silence envelop her. It's over. It's really over. The days that follow are filled with a strange mix of relief and grief. Laura isn't sure if she's allowed to feel both at once, but that's how it is. She's relieved that the decision has been made. She's relieved that she's no longer holding onto a life that no longer fits her. But there's also a sadness in knowing that part of her life, part of her identity, is gone. She spends time with the kids, trying to make the transition easier for them. They still ask about their dad sometimes, and though Laura's heart aches for them, she knows that she's doing the right thing. She's giving them a future where they don't have to witness the brokenness, where they don't have to wonder if their parents are going to stay together. But there's something else that's changing, too. Something Laura hasn't fully realized until now. She's rediscovering herself. She's remembering the woman she used to be before all the pain, before the doubts. She's learning to trust herself again. She's learning to speak her truth, to stand up for what she deserves. And she's beginning to feel a quiet hope that maybe, just maybe, there's still time for happiness in her life. A happiness that doesn't rely on anyone else, but that comes from within. 2 months later, Laura is sitting in the park with Rachel, the warm sun shining down on them. The kids are running around, playing tag, their laughter filling the air. It's peaceful here, this moment of calm amidst the chaos. Rachel looks over at Laura, who seems different, lighter, more at peace than she's been in a long time. "You're really doing it, aren't you?" Rachel says, a knowing smile on her face. Laura laughs, a soft, contented sound. "I think I am." "It's not easy, I know," Rachel says, her expression serious now. "But I'm proud of you. You're finally living for yourself, not for anyone else." "I'm not sure I would have believed I could do this," Laura says, her gaze on the kids, her heart full. "But I've learned that I'm stronger than I thought. And the best part is, I don't need anyone else to make me whole." Rachel smiles, her eyes softening. "That's the most important lesson, Laura. And now you get to live it." The wind rustles the leaves above them, and as Laura watches the kids play, she feels a calm wash over her. She's been through so much, and she knows the road ahead will still have challenges. But for the first time in a long time, she feels ready for whatever comes next. The days have started to blend together, each one carrying the weight of the past but also the lightness of something new beginning. Laura can't say when exactly it happened, but at some point, she stopped feeling like she was carrying the world on her shoulders. The silence that once haunted her now feels like a familiar companion, a peace she's learning to embrace, rather than fear. The storm that marked the end of her marriage has passed, leaving behind the kind of quiet she never thought she would find again. The kids are adjusting too. Emily and Noah still ask about their dad sometimes, but it's not as often. Laura can tell they're starting to settle into the new normal, and for that, she's grateful. They're thriving in ways she hadn't expected. Emily's drawing more than ever, filling pages with colorful sketches of places they've never been, of dreams she can't yet articulate. Noah's confidence has grown, too. He's not as shy as he once was. And Laura, though it hasn't been easy, is learning to be there for them in ways she never thought possible. Rachel has become more than just a friend to Laura. She's become her anchor. The two of them spend their evenings talking, laughing, and planning for the future. It's these moments of connection that remind Laura she's not alone. She's surrounded by love, and that's more than enough. One evening, as the sun begins to dip low in the sky, Laura is sitting on the back porch, watching the kids play in the yard. Her phone buzzes on the table next to her, and she picks it up, expecting another text from Rachel or a work-related message. But when she sees the name on the screen, her heart catches in her throat. It's Mark. Her fingers hesitate over the screen, uncertainty flooding her chest. After everything, after the final phone call, after the months of silence, why now? She's not sure if she's ready for this, but she knows she can't keep avoiding it. It's time to let go once and for all. She opens the message. I'm not sure what I expected when I sent this, but I just wanted you to know, I've been doing a lot of thinking. I realize now how much I hurt you, how much I hurt us. I don't expect you to forgive me, and I don't want to disrupt your life. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. Laura reads the message twice, the words sinking in, heavy but not crushing. She places the phone back down on the table, her mind racing, but her heart steadier than it has been in months. Mark is trying, and that's something, but Laura knows that forgiveness, for herself as much as for him, isn't something that can happen in a text message. It's a process, a long, painful one, but that doesn't mean she's not grateful for it, for the acknowledgement, for the closure. She doesn't respond right away. She doesn't have to. She knows that this moment, this step, is one of the final pieces of her healing. A few weeks later, Laura is sitting in the kitchen, enjoying a rare moment of solitude while the kids are out with Rachel. The house is quiet, almost too quiet, and for the first time in a long time, Laura feels a sense of peace wash over her. She's no longer running from the past. She's no longer hiding from the pain that once seemed all-consuming. She's confronted it. She's faced it. And now she's standing on the other side, ready to embrace the future. She picks up her phone again, this time dialing Rachel's number. When her friend picks up, Laura smiles. "Hey, I've been thinking," she says, her voice light but full of meaning, "about what comes next." "I knew it," Rachel says with a laugh. "I knew you were ready for the next chapter." Laura laughs too. It's been a long time since she felt this certain about anything. "Yeah, I think I am. I think I'm ready to start something new, to start living for myself. No more looking back." "That's exactly what I wanted to hear," Rachel says, her voice warm. "You're going to do great things, Laura. You're already doing them." It's a couple of months after that conversation when Laura gets a call from the school district. They've got a position open, one she's been eyeing for a while, but never thought she'd actually be considered for. A few months ago, she wouldn't have had the confidence to even apply. But now she's different. She's learned to trust herself, to step into new opportunities without hesitation. When the offer comes through, she's filled with a sense of pride. She takes a moment to breathe it in, the accomplishment, the realization that this is her life now. She's built this, and it feels good, really good. Laura stands in front of the mirror later that evening, getting ready for a casual dinner with friends. She catches her reflection, and for the first time in a long time, she's proud of the woman staring back at her. The woman who has fought through so much, who has let go of the past and embraced the future. She smiles, and for once she feels whole. As the seasons change, Laura's life continues to evolve. She's still learning, still growing, but she's no longer haunted by the uncertainty that once weighed her down. She's made peace with her past, and now she's moving forward, not with bitterness, but with an open heart, ready to embrace whatever comes next. Her relationship with the kids has never been stronger. They're not just her responsibility. They're her joy, her reason to push forward. She's finally living for herself, not for anyone else. And that freedom, that sense of empowerment, is something she's never known before. And as she watches the sun set one evening, with Emily and Noah beside her, their laughter filling the air, Laura knows that this is just the beginning. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel for future videos. Thanks for watching.